Hello everybody, I'm Alexy Khrabrov, the organizer of SF Spark in France. And here we are on location at Splice Machine. And we have a very interesting meetup tonight, which is marrying Spark with some real-time analytics. And here we also have John Leach, who is the CTO and co-founder of Splice Machine.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, for having us. Very excited to learn about Splice Machine. So maybe you could tell us a little bit, what is Splice Machine, how did you come to co-found it, and what is the need in the market for the product you guys are building?
Yeah, so a lot of times products come from some great innovation or some great idea that you had. And this product came out because when basically Hadoop came to market about 6 or 7 years ago, large companies were really excited about it. And they said, conceptually, they looked at it as a database, but in actuality it was a file system. And it was a file system with no concurrency model. And I struggled personally trying to bring that successfully to market at different, mostly Fortune 500 type companies. Just didn't work. They wanted it to behave more like a database. They wanted to load data all during the day. They wanted to do things like deletes and updates. They want to do constraints, all this data management stuff that, probably isn't terribly interesting to us. But you realize when you don't have it and you have a multi-terabyte data set or petabyte data set with no constraints, no governance, that's not realistically something you can do. So based on that failure, and that there was a really pertinent question someone posed to me, and they came up to me and they said, look, we have this massive amount of data, and I've got these applications that are struggling, that are under tremendous duress. But you know what? This Hadoop, I need someone to say, look, I can run my campaign management software on Hadoop. I can run my order management software on it. I can run my Internet of Things application on it. I can do all of that, have all the benefits of the ecosystem and all the great intellectual property that's being generated and cool ideas, but I still need it to function, do constraints, do the things that we expect. And when that was posed to me, Monty and I kind of came together with Gene Davis, the third co-founder, and we said, this is a great opportunity because Hadoop can't be over here and applications over here. And Monty had an experience with Rocket Fuel where they were using HBase and real-time, doing a lot of real-time optimization. And you really realize that's nice for a company as sophisticated as Rocket Fuel. But I want distributed computing to be available to everybody.
Yeah, you always hear about HBase because people always need to tune it, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that today.
I think the sign that the news about HBase and never stopping means that's not an easy beast to handle. It takes a big company to manage it properly.
Yeah, and what we've done at Splice Machine is to really think about all the problems we have. And the problems that we're solving, and we'd really try to isolate them. So when we look at HBase, a great OLTP system, but it struggles when it tries to do analytical processing or compactions, all these things that were problematic. And at Splice Machine, we didn't accept that as a reality. We said, look, compactions are a problem in HBase. Well, you know what? We're not going to run them in HBase. We're going to run them in Spark. Why should your transactional system try to read massive amounts of files and merge them together? Would you do? Does that seem coherent?
That's not like transactional processing.
Exactly. So for us, we look at everything and say, look, here's OLTP and here's OLAP. That's a gross simplification, but really it's about, is there something that needs to go through a block cache, go through different structures for optimization for transactional processing? Or is this a destructive process, i.e. an analytical process? Something that's reading a lot of information in, performing computations that are expensive. If that's happening, put it in a system that's appropriate for that. And make sure that you can both isolate OLTP and OLAP, and inside OLAP, you can prioritize all the jobs that are happening. Compaction, should a compaction be prioritized over the CEO's query? Probably not. Should compaction be prioritized over index creation? That's a good thing for an administrator to determine, well, what should be prioritized. So that's really our strategy, is to isolate OLTP and OLAP. And why we're here talking with you guys is we really determined, this is over 2 years ago now, that Spark would do that. And Michael Franklin is on my advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
He really helped us like conceptualize and you know what it is we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at it, it made sense to us, the investment there. Spark has come a massive, I mean, huge amount, you know, the sophistication there is just, you can see it snowballing.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting for us. And you know, we've been, like I said, we've been at it for 2 years.
This is a really long time. I mean, you guys kind of far ahead of many folks, right? Because kind of I mean, when I tried cloud, Spark Cloud in 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a very raw thing. Right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And people, were actually telling me like, I don't know about the Spark thing, I don't know about the Scala thing. Right? Look at Java works, right?
Yeah.
And so recently, right? That kind of massive acceptance happened, but I would say 2 years ago it was still not such a clear view. So Michael is a great guy, so it's kind of I know a lot of folks, and that's I think this is really interesting. But I wonder how. So you had this Fortune 500 experience before, right? And
it wasn't a good one. To be honest, it was. I'm one of those guys that admits I failed at big data initially. Like it didn't meet really. Yeah, it may have been a successful project for some people, but if you talk to the business executives, they didn't get the value out of it they needed to, and that's just not acceptable. Because this is what's going on here is going to change businesses, innovation. But we have to get it to a place where people can go beyond just data management and start actually doing advanced algorithms, smart application, which Monty, that's his passion, building smart applications with machine learning and real-time data. I mean, that's he inspires me with the way he communicates to the whole team here at Splice Machine about we are going to build the next generation of smart applications. And they're going to be built on our platform.
This is really exciting to me, right? Because we kind of we see this data pipelines emerging, where from inception, from API, from millions of iPhones banging on API, then you have data kind of passing through, right? And then they're aggregated, and there is some analytic process happening in Spark, and some kind of action happens, and it needs to happen fast, right? So
correct.
It sounds like what you guys are doing really is helpful. But I want to kind of follow up on this value you mentioned, because a lot of developers are in the trenches. They're not realizing, right, that like decisions are made by these executives, and kind of the system like this usually is procured by a company which has massive data coming in. And so it's really interesting to me that you mentioned, that you want to deliver value to the businesses, right? So how do you communicate this?
And researchers.
And researchers.
I mean, I think that's going to be fascinating. And how do we tell them about this value?
Right. How do you communicate? I mean, I can understand researchers digging this, but how do you communicate the issues to to executives who basically need to make a choice? Do we buy Oracle? Right? Do we set up HBase? Do we set up Databricks? Do we set up Splice?
Sure.
How do you kind of communicate the key points of what is different about?
Yeah. So our differentiation is if you have an existing like Oracle RAC or Oracle Exadata, what we would do is say, if you have applications running on that, that's a key qualifier for us. You're not just kind of throwing data into a file system. You have active applications. You have users. You have a business owner who's trying to get some value or run something that's driving their business. And what we do is we see Oracle or another relational database out there, and people want this data updated more frequently. They want to be able to run both transactional and what we call it is kind of real-time analytics, operational analytics. If we see that, that's really our sweet spot, is to go in that. And initially, it's been mostly digital marketing. They're early adopters. They have a ton of stress. They have existing package applications that they've already invested in, whether it's Unica, Redpoint, those types of products. Great products. They're all SQL-based, and they're transactional. And you know what? That's really been our focus because they have a tremendous amount of data already. They want to add Twitter data, they want to add all kinds of different data sets, but that expense has to be commoditized.
Yes.
It cannot be, this is going to be a $5 million system. They'll say, whoa, okay, a couple $100,000 I can get it, but $5 million, I'll just spend that and not even know what happened in my market. So for us, we're really focused on bringing applications. And what does an application mean? It means transactionality. It means that things are being concurrently updated, and the database has to apply those rules.
Interesting. So yeah, that reminds me, multiple tech companies I know, and they kind of, I mean, they kind of swear by Oracle, and they would install a gigantic, like, even in the early days, terabyte RAM machine.
Oh yes, totally.
And basically the $7 million tech would appear, and we would keep logs in there, right? And and when I was at Amazon 10 years ago, basically, everything was open source except for Oracle handling money, right? Because if you want to entrust your most important transactional system to handle money, right? So so everything touching money was an Oracle.
But even when you have those transactional systems, that operational data store, that next layer, it still has all of the data management components in it. And then you have the spin-off, columnar type read-only optimized stores and things of that nature, and the analytical systems or machine learning, like a Spark, reading from that, or having its own environment in the case of SaaS or something like that. But I think Oracle is still cemented in that operational data store, which is a very expensive. It's not the actual app in some sense running the business, but it's still a very expensive proposition. And that's something that we attack pretty aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, as an open source guy, right? Spark is inherently open source. And the great thing about it, Apache Spark is always going to be open source, right?
Correct.
They're just committed to this.
Correct.
So I can easily see, if I need some massive amount of stuff in memory, like I'd rather use open source tools for this. So would you say that you can provide transaction processing for financial data, which is currently can be stored in Oracle, or would you leave it to Oracle and be the operational data manager, or can you take on the whole suite of transactional processing?
Well, we run the TPCC benchmark, so yes, we would love to do that, but I'm also realistic, right? If I come to you and say, I'm going to replace your trading platform, you're going to say, but if I say, look, every year you're not going to have to write that check to Oracle for your operational data store, and here are the suite of applications or the larger data sets there, and hey, can we transition that onto Splice Machine and cap your Oracle spend? That's interesting to people.
Yes.
And by the way, when we built our system, we built it in a completely open manner. And what I mean by an open manner is we're a relational database that allows you to, in parallel, read and write data to our system from Hive, Impala, Spark. All of our SQL will return for the Spark community. It will actually return all the instructions. It won't actually return result sets. Our result sets are actually RDDs. They're actually data sets.
Nice.
So you have all the instructions, you haven't even run your SQL, and you say, here are the other manipulations, execute it. Nice. And the whole package is in a resilient structure of, these are the instructions that need to be run to perform whatever operations you're wanting from an analytical perspective.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, it makes a lot of sense to me because, Oracle is compliant, so you can entrust the final, financial log to this, but I don't see a reason to basically store a lot of operational data in it, right? Like if you can use more efficient open source systems to do this. So I guess you guys, use RDDs. Are you using Scala for this?
No, so it's a good question. So we're mostly a Java shop, and then we've got obviously some functional with regard to how we integrate with Spark, with Scala there, but mostly JVM based. Yeah. Our focus has really been, like I said, isolating the workloads, resource management on the analytical side. We've spent a lot of time with Yarn. So Spark on Yarn is something that is just second nature. That's how even developers, they run little Yarn apps with Spark in them when we do it. So we're really focused on how can you get the repeatable results, because that's really where confidence comes in a database.
Interesting. Yeah, this is interesting because I recall TypeSafe ran a survey in terms of the Scala company, and then everybody's surprised that the majority of the world was basically even a lot of non-Scala shops. Java shops are running Spark, right? I mean, a lot of data science is using Python, so it's really taking hold as kind of this common way to handle a lot of data in memory.
Yeah, and I don't want to pick, like for us, we support SQL, and that's our strength. Obviously, the application's written in Java and all that, but from an external point of view, you can use Scala, you can use the Spark client in Scala and do that, and issue SQL and get those instructions back. But the cool thing is, when you write data from Spark into Splice Machine, it's still going to do triggers. It's still going to do check constraints. It's going to do your foreign key value validation. There's no second-class citizen. So tools that use that we integrate with, they have all the capabilities that we have at Splice Machine when they write and read data. They read data consistently. So if there are big updates going on and things like that, they'll see a consistent view of the database. That's absolutely critical as we get in these more complex environments where data is coming in at all the different times, whether it's an advanced ETL environment or an application environment. It's absolutely critical. So that's what's exciting to me, because now I can start to see how can you have really complex applications at scale and yet still have an RDBMS, where the knock against RDBMS is mine, right? They were like a data, only the SQL in there, and if you want to get it out, it's a result set or ODBC, JDBC, and it's mine, right? And it completely isolated all other products from it. And we said, no, that's a fundamental mistake. Spark should be able to go in parallel against Splice Machine and access our data natively off of HDFS as kind of a common piece. And we're passionate about that piece. Because there's so much innovation going on, not just Spark, but I mean, there's a whole host of different machine learning algorithms that people are developing, you name it. And I think that's absolutely critical.
Source, right? Like it's open source, it's open ecosystem, and you basically get the benefit, right?
Exactly.
So this is great to hear. I mean, this is kind of what folks in the meetups are passionate about, right? Basically, how this open source technology is playing out in different areas. I would ask you for your opinion about this, because what I noticed, the evolution of Spark is actually it seems like it's evolving towards a database. Right? If you look, they started with basically raw, RDDs, right? And then data frames appear, right? And then the project Tungsten wants to push it down and optimize it. And so essentially, what is happening, 100% of Spark users are using Spark SQL. So basically, the SQL will just not die, right? Like basically, it will reincarnate in any new host. Right, and it will show up, and basically, so what happened is, the market basically is driving Spark to provide SQL again, but now it's a different kind of SQL, right? It's basically not necessarily satisfying constraints, but it looks like SQL, right? You can have SQL queries of it. And so, what do you think about essentially? And it seems like since 100% of Spark users are using Spark SQL, so then they're demanding basically that it is optimized and that the data frames are evolving.
Correct.
And, right? Do you think that it's kind of where the market is driving Spark, and that the data frames will become effectively this kind of in-memory database? What's your thought on this?
Yeah, I think when we talk internally about Spark, we call it a data flow engine. And that's technically what it does. It applies relational algebra. It doesn't focus on the storage piece. That's very abstract, right?
Yes.
Deliberately, because it makes it very flexible, and there's great characteristics of that. But when you talk about a database, the sticky bits are when you get down to the storage, right?
Yes.
That's the concurrency part. That's the, how do you create an index and still be transactionally correct when people are writing into it at the same time. I mean, all these really difficult relational database and transactional sort of questions. That's where we focused at Splice Machine, and why we're, I think, very different, because we focused on that piece where what Spark's doing, and I don't want to discount it, but they're following the same thing that like Hive did, right? Hive was just, hey, we want to be able to use this, we don't want to write Java for it, so let's just do this, right? And SQL is something everybody knew, and there's a lot of legacy code for actual SQL apps. So I think it's interesting, but for me, the key is really the storage layer. Because for me, it's like, well, what kind of applications are you enabling? And what's absolutely critical for Splice is I want somebody who can run, a marketing application, some sort of real application that affects the business without having to build it from the ground up with 100 engineers. That can just even take just a packaged app off the street. Or if someone says, you know what, we have a company that's a healthcare company building smart applications. That's amazing to me, because then you're starting to see people realize I can build really complex apps that do RDBMS, but at the same time I can take advantage of classification algorithms in Spark, some of those things, and you start to say, wow, this is going to be cool. Or the Atom libraries in Spark, where they're starting to do genetic processing. All of these things, I'm like, wow, we're starting to commoditize data, and we're starting to build these applications that we really wanted to build when we started this. Because when everybody did Hadoop and started Spark, it was really about, can we build these applications that are interactive, that are smart, that give us what we want when we want it. And why didn't it happen? Because we got bogged down in the distributed file system. We got bogged down into just the data management piece.
Yes.
We really did. And the differentiation the companies are going to finally achieve is, okay, we have the data management piece, but I want to work on feature development for my algorithms, developing the right features and measurements to be able to feed to an algorithm. When they get there and they're not talking about, gosh, my data is corrupt, doesn't, when they can get out of that world and they can get into the other world of actually applying algorithms, and our topics are not people trying to do indexing strategies and stuff like that, but really our topics are what algorithms are appropriate, what features are appropriate. That's when we know we've progressed, in my mind, to building these applications that everybody's starting to expect, but they're really expensive right now for people to buy.
Interesting. I mean, this sounds like a really, really good strategy. So maybe we'll kind of wrap up with some predictions. Right? Like it looks like you guys are gearing up, right? It sounds like really valuable idea. If I would write, and I know the Adam people, and like they're building genomics tools, and there are multiple genomic startups. And we have this conference called Data by the Way coming up in May, and then multiple verticals. We have NLP folks, who have life sciences, and kind of, if life sciences folks can take this, they'll probably will, right? So, so where do you see yourselves in the next year? What kind of industries, what kind of setups are best to use Splice Machine? If have some perspective, companies and customers kind of seeing this. Who do you suggest kind of is a good pilot? Who is kind of the early customer who can actually benefit?
Yeah, so it's digital marketing. They're always early adopters. People with large operational data stores that they're probably still in an Oracle rack, and it's probably stressed a little bit by its sizing. Internet of Things type applications with high concurrency, and you want to be able to do operational analytics and maybe even drive an application. We're all starting to wear these smart devices. I think that industrial internet, we've started to see that, whether it's cell phone towers, those sorts of things are very...
Also sensor data.
That's extremely interesting to me. So I think there's a whole host of those types of applications. And those are the things, but to be honest, we're really just focused on our customers. I mean, maniacally focused on making our customers successful. And that's, we partner with our prospects and customers, and we really focus on making those successful, whether it's, genetic information, marketing information. We really want to just focus there on customers. That's how we're going to be successful.
Cool. So like, if we rewind next year, like what would make you happy? What kind of state of affairs, what kind of adoption would make, you happy next year?
It's funny, when we started the company, Monty and I sat down and said, what would make you excited about Splice Machine? And we talked about things like, we'd like to be able to say we saved someone's life by providing algorithms at time in that sort of platform for real time. And Monty talks about computing the uncomputable. And uncomputable is not even a word, and he loves that, which is great. And his point is, and I really do concur with him, as we have applications that can start taking real-time data but still give us analytical capabilities and machine learning capabilities, I want to see those use cases in Splice Machine. And I want to see people start pushing it. That's what would make me happy. It'd be great to replace a lot of Oracle instances. I'd be happy with that, just from a revenue and acquiring customers. But to be honest, I really would love to see those smart applications, because as a technologist, that's really exciting.
All right, so hope that we see a lot of smart apps, and it sounds like a really interesting platform to try this. So I hope folks you can give it a spin and see what happens. And we're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.